morning. Scheherazade, what is your son's name? Aaron? So imagine several weeks ago when Aaron came home from overseas, and I reached out to Scheherazade because I was nervous about some intravenous stuff I was having to do at home, and she brings Aaron straight from Afghanistan into my guest bedroom to help me with my tubing, and I went, well, there's a manifestation right there. So we wish Aaron well. It was a pleasure to get to meet him. It was an honor to have him come to my house right before he's going to Wall Street to make a huge life change for him. So you did good. You're a good mom. You're a good mom. Whatever arises, love that. I can't stress enough the value that you would receive if you took the time to order that book. It's a remarkable book. It's not an easy read. It requires a lot of contemplation because the material in and of itself is so rich. And I find that when you have something that is that rich, you want to savor it. And savoring requires a particular rhythm, and a rhythm that slows down so that you can really begin to digest what the author is offering. And today, I will be joined with the lovely Mona Shai Joshi as we talk about a particular piece in the book that he feels is most critical and by he I'm talking about Matt Kahn, the author, with regards to the state of our being. This particular section has to do with ego and suffering, good times, and but what he also calls the overstimulated nervous system. And this is where I really had to sit with this and the density of what it was that he was writing. And I'm not in the medical profession, but I'm going to give you a brief synopsis. So first of all, contemplate this, that what you are made of is genius. How does that make you feel? What you are made of, what you are absorbed in, what you cannot escape from, is a system of genius. So let me describe that a little bit, the system of genius. So the author talks about the fact that all of us have within us these systems. This particular one we're going to talk about briefly is the nervous system. So all that I ever really knew about the nervous system was my mother telling me that I get on her nerves, or that I work her last nerve, or that I would hear that expression over and over and over again. So when I hear the term nervous system, I just think about what my mother said about we are all getting on each other's nerves. But the nervous system is the fundamental part that makes the mobility and the choices and the brain synapses and everything that we think from the mental realm to be expressed through the physical. Does that make sense? And so that nervous system takes the information and it assimilates that information throughout our body, most of it unconsciously. We cross our legs, we sneeze, we respond, we do things that are stimulated through this particular nervous system. But when you combine that with the genius of the endocrine system and the respiratory system and the circulatory system and the muscular system, oh my God, you and I are these intricate beings of intelligence and genius. When was the last time that you woke up and you went through this complete inventory of giving gratitude for all of your systems and the functionality by which they work in harmony with one another without even having to micromanage it? You do not have to tell your heart to beat, it just beats. You do not have to tell the blood to flow through the vein, it just flows through the vein. It's a part of the genius, and it's one of the things that not only do we take for granted, but we forget, but even more soberingly, we oppress. We oppress, and what I mean by that is that even with the systems of these genius operations that are taking place within us, we have another spiritual system, and that spiritual system is consciousness. And when we understand that consciousness operates in harmony with all of the other systems, when no one overrides the other, but they work in tandem together, then that means that each system is what? Dependent upon one another. That's where we come with this term mind, body, spirit. And we've heard that often, particularly in our philosophy. We talk about how in harmony the mind and the body and the spirit work together. They are an integrated whole. They are not dissected and separate, that they work in tandem. They work in tandem even when we are negligent or ignorant of those systems. They work in tandem even when we are resistant in honoring one of those particular systems. So the particular system I'm talking about is that consciousness system. When we do not become caregivers or caretakers of our particular realm of consciousness, it isn't that we just have an experience where things don't work out. It means that every other system within us is affected by our relationship with consciousness. Did you hear that? Every system within us operates as a whole. And so I realized that when I would reflect upon my mother saying, you know, you get on my nerves, the reality is that we put things on our nerves. People don't get on our nerves. We put those people on our nerves. Almost as if there's an internal roller coaster ride like at Disneyland, and we say, hi, come, ride the roller coaster of my nervous system. I welcome you. And we give them an e-ticket, kind of at Disneyland, where they can have carte blanche, meaning that in consciousness, I do not reframe the thought, or I do not filter the thought, or I do not pause the thoughts that are not harmonious to all of the systems in my body. For example, if that thought that gets triggered through the nervous system, that my attempts at creativity are futile because no one's going to love what I do, then that particular synapsis goes off through the nervous system, and it affects what? The totality of the rest of my being. And those particular systems then magnetize themselves, and then that's the way in which the world reflects back what's going on within my nervous system. And so the person who doesn't honor, let's say, my creativity, it's not that they're getting on my nerves. It's that I have invited them to sit in the roller coaster of my nervous system and now travel through my body and affect my respiratory and affect my muscular system and affect my circulatory system and all of the other things because of right of consciousness. And what's amazing about that is if I do not then disrupt, if I do not look at the overstimulated nature of that particular nervous system and see the repetitive pattern by which I continue to do this day after day, year after year, decade after decade, all of the other systems then begin to break down. And the responsibility of the maintenance of those systems is ours. We are the gatekeepers. We are the ones who choose. And so people are not getting on our nerves. The government is not getting on our nerves. Relatives are not getting on our nerves. Our finances are not getting on our nerves. The people to your left and to your right are not getting on your nerves. We are putting them on that nerve, and we are allowing them to ride in the e-ticket of the roller coaster through all of the systems within our being. And it's not that they just do one particular ride. You ever go to the movies and you see, you know, the popcorn, the trailers before the movie starts, and they have the AMC? I always want to go to the movies with someone who will do this with me. Ty won't do it. But I'm like sitting there and I go, and that's kind of what the nervous system is doing. And then it comes to a halt, and then you get to eat your popcorn. But think about this. If that disruptive ride doesn't change, if, again, there is no disruption, then the ride never ceases. Just as you pull in, it starts over again and starts over again. Some people might call that being triggered. You know, the getting on our nerve is something triggers, and then it causes the roller coaster through the nervous system to continue and to continue and to continue and to continue and to continue. And so what does that have to do? This overstimulated, repetitive pattern that works within our nervous system that was totally compatible with what the science of mind teaches. In fact, Ernest Holmes, our founder, says it is not the spirit of us that needs to be made whole. It is our mental reactions to life that need to heal. These mental reactions are both conscious and they are subjective, meaning subconscious as well. And so what is the thing? What is the thing that continues to perpetuate that nervous system, that continues to perpetuate that overstimulus, that trigger over and over and over again? And I believe the answer lies within Monashai Joshi. I look for you for the answer.
What was the question?
I love this woman, and I'm so grateful that she has served on our council. Please give Monashai Joshi a welcome here.
You know, it's been such a blessing to be part of this council. I've been reading since I joined the council about Ernest Holmes and the philosophy of the Spiritual Living Center. And Ernest Holmes studied world religions till the end of his life. And he saw these, you know, he called us a center. You know all this. I'm just saying it for my friends who may not, who are listening on YouTube. So a center because he thought of this as a teaching institute, not a church. And with this council, that's really what we've done, is all of you have brought this teaching institute into such an enlivened space and world religions back into the forefront, and different narratives and traditions and different ways of looking at things. And for that, I applaud you. So what was the question?
And so in the text that we were studying together, we talked about that overstimulated nervous system, but then he said it was the ego was the thing that perpetuates that overstimulation. And how would you describe, from the work that you've done so extensively, what the ego is? Because there's so many different opinions about what that is.
Can we experience the ego? Yes. It's easy to see on someone else's face, isn't it? And not as recognizable within ourselves unless we're conscious about it. So let's do this experiment. Let's close our eyes. Eyes are closed. Now David and I will bring one of you to the front of the stage and ask you to do a belly dance. And since I don't know everyone's name, I'm going to rely on David. I'll just point somebody out. Eyes are closed. Don't cheat. And the person we're going to call on is... Open your eyes. How did you feel at the idea of having to come on stage?
I was all ready to go get Gregory. Could I still do that?
Did it feel uncomfortable? Yes. That's the ego right there. That feeling of separation. Right now, where you're seated, you're feeling very much at ease, very much at home. Yes? Right. But the moment you have to come in front of a group of people, it suddenly becomes, they're looking at me. Them and me. That feeling of separation that we have, I would call that the ego. A feeling of unnaturalness. See, when you're really small, think of a small child, You know, and you ask them to dance or sing, and you don't even need to ask them. They just start doing it at the grocery store, in front of relatives, wherever they may be. They're just their natural self. They don't think twice about putting themselves on the floor of a toy store and having a tantrum because they're not concerned about what other people think. Whereas, meanwhile, the parent is like, oh my God. That's naturalness. So what is the antidote for ego? That we'll also look into.
Well, the author called the ego the fictitious character. The fictitious character which is identified with the overstimulated nervous system. So if we look at that, what we talked about then is the nervous system is what? It's that genius system that takes those neurons and those choices and those thoughts, and they assimilate themselves through our body. So if the ego, by your definition, is a sense of separation, then every time I think that I am separate from, what does that do? It then moves through all of the systems, and as we understand new thought principles and metaphysics to teach us, then the world reflects that back to us. So the ego is saying what? You and I are separate. There is an us and them. There is a more and a less. There is a win and a lose. All of those things are then examples of that ego. And so as long as I continue to allow that to ride within that nervous system throughout my body, the world then just simply says yes. And that becomes my experience. So it's like a fictitious character. And like you said, the child hasn't developed that yet. Correct? Right. The child is operating from that pure sense of what's mine is mine, and what's yours is mine, and what's yours is and what's yours is yours, and we're just sharing, right? Until we begin to cultivate this idea of a less and a more and an us and a them.
You know, the whole idea of a fictitious ego is so interesting because that's what the Indian philosophy of Maya is all about, that it's an illusion. In fact, the word Maya itself means anything which can be measured is an illusion. So, for example, our age. Many of us would agree our age is an illusion. Anything that can, some of us might say our weight might be an illusion. So anything that can be measured is an illusion. And when you think of the ego that way as not real, then you start to look at things in a different way. You know, because these triggers, these patterns of behavior that get stimulated in the nervous system, it's like it's so instantaneous, it's so unconscious. And when we stop and become conscious, only then can we begin to change those patterns.
And how do we stop and become conscious? Like right now, we all have some ego going on. We all walked in with ego this morning, meaning we all walked in with a sense of separation. We all walked in with a cultivated belief of an us and them. We walked in with a generational sense of ego, of separation. We walked in with unconscious bias that is equated to ego. We've all got this accumulated. It's all riding within our nervous system. How do we disrupt that? How do we notice that?
Let's begin with another experiment. Are you game? So turn to someone next to you. And quickly, one person is A and one's B. Have you decided? So A will start. A will say to your partner, "Who are you?" And that's the only thing that will come out of your mouth again and again and again. No commentary on what B says, just again and again, "Who are you? Who are you?" And B, just keep replying with the first thing that comes in your mind. Let's start.
A and a B ask, "Who are you?" just over and over again, and respond, and then switch turns. Those are your highlights.
Let's switch if you haven't already. And let's give our partners a big hand. Now, just call things out. What came to you when you said, I am? What were some of the words that came out of your mouths? Woman. Love. Peace. Creativity. Garbage, what?
God.
I heard something here. Child of God. So here's an interesting thought about ego. Whatever comes after the word I am is the ego. Whether it's positive or negative, whether it's a thought along the lines of I'm better than you, or nobody likes me, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, I'm hopeless. Whatever comes after the words I am, what if we saw that as ego because it separates you from other people? Whether you feel better or you feel less than, there's a separation going on. Now, one thing is to become conscious of the ego on the level of the thought, right? On the level of the mind. Okay, that's it. I'm going to just put my ego aside. Has that worked for you? It does have a tendency to come up in the most inopportune moments, doesn't it? So it's very hard for the mind to control the mind with the mind. It just gets more entangled. I mean, have you ever promised yourself I'm not going to get angry anymore? And that went off really well too. So the way to handle the mind-ego complex is through yoga, breathing techniques such as Sudarshan Kriya, and meditation. Because you're transcending the level of the mind and working at a deeper level. And it also soothes that overstimulated nervous system. For example, on Sudarshan Kriya, a lot of research is being done right now around the world, including on returning vets from the war that we've been going through in the Middle East. And it's been so effective with PTSD. So on a conscious level, you can say, well, this is crazy, I'm not in that situation anymore, and I can handle this. On the other hand, there's something in that fried nervous system that's still reacting. So breathing can be so disruptive of that. We'll do a quick experiment again. Hold your breath. Ah, you breathed in and held your breath. I'll bring this up later again. Hold your breath. Relax. Did you notice at the moment you stopped the breath, the mind also stopped? Hold it. Relax. Interesting, no? How powerful the mind and the breath work together. And that's such a wonderful disruptor of the ego. Actually, years ago, I asked Sri Ravi Shankar, my guru, my mentor, where's the ego? And he replied back, where's the mind? And maybe we can do that later. It's a little bit of meditation to experience bringing that over-fried nervous system back to ourselves.
And so with the combination of understanding the nervous system and the responsibility and the opportunity that we have in the exploration of this thing we call the ego, realizing that there is a perpetual separation that lingers throughout the human existence. You take those two things and what they offer us is either a pathway of suffering or a pathway of renewal. And as has always been shared, suffering is optional. Pain will happen, but the suffering from that pain is optional, meaning the lingering of the trauma or the perpetual allowing of the thought to ride through the nervous system is something that is optional. What I love about these types of dialogues is that there isn't a one-size-fits-all way in order for any of us to be able to move into a greater optimization of our wholeness. But when the book says, whatever arises, love that, my biggest takeaway with that then is this word neutrality. And neutrality teaches me that everything that I have been educated or domesticated to believe about something might not necessarily be true. That my conditioned responses and my labelings are things that I have inherited. That the things that I label are also the things that my friends label, or my country labels, or my government labels, or my religion labels. And without even realizing it, I have adopted those particular labels as fundamental truths, rather than going, maybe, maybe not.
Perhaps.
Perhaps. Exactly. I shared on a Facebook Live about the old story about the farmer whose horse ran away. And everyone within the community came and they bemoaned and they huddled around him. We said, we're so sorry. I know that's such a big part of your livelihood and you have lost your horse. What a terrible thing. And he said, maybe yes, maybe no. 2 days later, the horse comes back. He just went off to party. And the horse was chewing some great grass over in another field, and he brought 12 of his friends back, all these 12 wild horses. And the community ran up to the farmer and they said, oh my God, what a blessing. Look at this abundance. Look at what you have created for yourself. This is amazing. Now you will reap the benefit and you will live in wealth. And he goes, maybe yes, maybe no. And one day his son goes out to try to tame one of the wild horses and gets his leg broken in a multitude of ways and is in great pain. And the community gathers around and they say to him, oh my God, this is a terrible thing. This is terrible what has happened to your son. And he says, maybe yes, maybe no. A couple of days later, war breaks out, and all of the government officials sweep through the landscape, coming and collecting every young man in order to enlist them to send them off to war. And when they get to that farmer's particular plot of land and they see the condition of his son, they say, he is no use to us. We can't take him. And the community gathers around and they said, oh, what a secret blessing that your son has been spared from having to go to war. What a great thing. And he goes, maybe yes, maybe no. And every single young person, the story goes, that was sent off to war was killed. And none of them came back. And the son continued to live out his life with this limp. And when you read and research this tried and true parable that's been told over and over and over again, do you realize that it has no ending? We put an ending to it. We put an ending to it, and all of the young men went off to war, and what a great thing. His life was spared. But there's no ending to that. Do you follow me? And so when you and I are engaged in the same thing about what is coming up to us, and our nervous system responds, and we label that thing as good or bad, we stimulate, we use the ego to determine that that is separate from us. We are in the perpetual cycle of that. And my question to Mona was, how do we disrupt that? And Mona is an expert, a beautiful facilitator of meditation and of breath work. And I've been privileged to be able to study with her, and I hope that you will come and be a part of her workshop in a week or so. Because that is one way. But I throw it out to you this morning as an invitation for you to find what is going to be that foundation or that touchstone of neutrality for you, where we look at all of that and go, maybe yes, maybe no. Oh my God, this is the end of everything. My safety is at stake. Maybe yes, maybe no. Perhaps.
Perhaps. And this whole principle of maybe yes, maybe no, that neutrality is freedom in life. See, an event happens, a situation, an incident is there. And the degree of difference between what is and how the mind, the ego, we interpret what is determines the degree of stress that we have around that situation. Because we're not able to see so often, maybe yes, maybe no. Oh my God, this is terrible, or this person this. We get caught up in the Maya, the illusion of the incident, instead of looking deeper. We do that with ourselves, we do that with people. You know, we've all had situations in life that have been challenging moments, or, you know, someone said something. And what do we hold on to? This person said something. As opposed to just looking at it, what is it doing in my nervous system? Oh, and removing it from he said, she said. Otherwise, then we start perpetuating that pattern of this person doesn't like me, this person thinks this of me, versus just looking at it as a thought, an energy that's affecting the nervous system in some way. And when we close our eyes and we reflect on it in that sense, then whatever the incident was, it loses its charge. Is this making sense?
And so a little takeaway for you today is, how can you begin to implement and understand the power of maybe yes, maybe no, the neutrality of that, and begin to become more loving with regards to the nervous system inside of us. Can you lead us and close us in a meditation this morning?
Yes. So let's sit. You already know what to do. With our feet on the floor, nothing in our hands, our eyes closed, and our palms can face towards the ceiling. Let's take a long breath in. And opening our mouth, let's breathe out. Once more, let's breathe in. One last time, let's breathe in. Let's become aware of our eyes. And notice if the eyes are moving back and forth. And just steady the eyes. At this moment, we're not interested in seeing anything. Behind the eyes, the mind is there, seeing through the eyes. Let's bring our sense of sight and the mind behind the eyes to the heart region. Let's become aware of our ears. At this time, we're not interested in listening to anything. Again, let's bring the sense of hearing, the mind that's interested in listening, back to the region of the heart, into the cave of our heart. Let's become aware of our nose. At this time, no matter how fragrant something may be, we're not interested in smelling anything. Let's bring the sense of smell towards the region of the heart and relax. Let's become aware of our mouth. Become aware of the saliva in your mouth. At this moment, we're not interested in tasting anything. Let us bring the sense of taste towards the region of the heart. Let us become aware of our skin. At this moment, we're not interested in touching anything. Let's bring the feeling, the desire for a sense of touch back towards the heart. At this moment, we're only interested in relaxing, reposing in the cave of our own heart. Love is not an emotion. It's your very existence. Every cell of your nervous system, every cell is vibrating with love. We are living surrounded by an ocean of love. Love is within. Love is outside. Love is what we are. Love is what is. Let's become aware of a point in the center of the chest, a tiny point. A tiny point in the center of our throat. Again, a tiny point in the center of the chest. Let's take a deep breath in and let go. Another breath in. And slowly relax. Let's slowly open our eyes.
And let us give thanks to our nervous system for a little vacation. If you would, just rub your hands together to get grounded again. And thank you so much. God bless. Hi, I'm David Ault, and I simply want to say thanks. Thanks for taking the time to watch our broadcast here at Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta. We have a vision, and that vision is to reawaken all to their spiritual magnificence. And one of the ways that we are able to do that is through this very medium of broadcasting. So if you got anything out of this, if you felt in any way inspired, or if something spoke to you directly, then I extend an invitation to you to become a part of our family by donating. And there are many ways in order for you to be able to do that. One is to simply go to our website at slca.com, and there you will find all different kinds of prompts that will help you support what it is that we are doing here in Atlanta. One way is to become a pledger. That means that you decide on a monthly basis that you are going to help us with this vision. Another way is to donate through our management system called Fellowship One, another through PayPal, and another even easier way is on your cell phone. You can do what's called text to tithe, and that number is 404-796-7030. Again, thank you so much for your support, and I invite you to come back weekly to see what it is that we're up to. Blessings.